If you're looking for those really choice horror movies that are hidden in the dark corners of Netflix, Prime, Tubi, and even Shudder, I've got 18 underground hits that deliver better than any big budget releases you've watched this year, and none of them follow the standard horror flick formula, giving us the absolute best hidden gem horror movies released in the past 10 years. Thanks to Magic Spoon for sponsoring this video, but we're going to start this list off all the way back at 2015, and then we'll work our way up to some of my absolute favorite horror flicks that released recently. But in 2015, a found footage horror movie released that would go on to inspire 5 sequels. Yes, in 10 years, they've created 5 sequels to House LLC. And you can currently catch this on Prime Video, AMC Plus, or Shudder. It's even free on Tubi. Hell, half this list is free on Tubi right now. But House LLC plays out almost like a documentary about a group of young people opening up a haunted house for Halloween. You know, a standard haunted house that has tickets and all that sort of stuff. And the bulk of the movie is footage of them constructing this haunted house. They rent out this old derelict building, and they're actually making like a legitimate haunted house in it. But strange things start happening as they're building this haunted house. Now, House LLC is a pretty slow burn, but if you like found footage movies, this one's great. I'll say even if you've become sort of disenchanted with them, this is certainly one of the best released in the past 10 years. It's not the only found footage movie on this list, but it's one of only maybe 3 out of 18. By the way, check the end of every single video for a list recap that includes all of the streaming services currently hosting the titles I'm talking about. For a wild, blood-soaked horror comedy released in the past 10 years, it didn't get a whole lot better than Deathgasm. In fact, fans of Shaun of the Dead, if you've somehow never watched Deathgasm, make it the first thing you watch off of this list. This movie is so funny. Yes, it's gory, it's loaded with all kinds of practical effects. There's even a dildo fight in this movie that's particularly gruesome, but the movie is funny as hell. You follow a bunch of metalheads, teenage boys that have a metal band. They come across this sheet music that summons demons, and while they're demons, this movie basically plays out like a zombie movie. If you're a fan of the genre, particularly the funnier ones, Deathgasm is loads of fun. And blood. A lot of blood. Lot of blood in Deathgasm. Blood and squirt guns filled with...
It's piss.
Now, unlike usual, this list is not ranked in terms of how good the movies are, mainly because everything on this list is so damn good. Rather, we're going through them chronologically, but next up we've got one from 2016 that's one of the best movies on this entire list. The Autopsy of Jane Doe. Now, not only is this one of the best horror movies on this list, it is one of the best movies, period. This is a fantastic film. It is fairly slow-paced, but the juice is worth the squeeze in this movie. But Emile Hirsch and Brian Cox play a father and son that run a morgue together. One night, a Jane Doe is brought in, and they've got to do the autopsy. But this Jane Doe is loaded with secrets. Quite literally, as they're making incisions and doing the autopsy, they are finding bizarre clues, one after the other. Eventually, this thing pops off, and The Autopsy of Jane Doe makes for a fantastic horror movie. Lights out, Halloween watch, great to watch with someone or by yourself. Again, slow pace, be patient. It is well worth the wait with this flick. Next up, we've got what's probably the artsiest movie on this list. If you watch it right, it can also be the most disturbing because of how effective the filmmaking is in the eyes of my mother. Now, this one caught me off guard. I was not expecting to see something this dark and twisted, particularly, again, the way it was filmed. And no, I don't mean the black and white. I mean the perspective of the filmmaker in this movie makes this 10 times more chilling than it would have been otherwise. I don't even want to say exactly what's going on here. I will say, though, this is for the art film crowd. I think what this movie's ultimately about and some of the more disturbing elements are going to be lost on people looking for something that's, you know, over the top and bloody. But if you're looking for a horror movie that will make you think, and honestly make you think things you've never thought before in a horror movie, this is going to be the one to watch. Now, if you want a bloody gore fest that's also surprisingly intellectually stimulating, The Void is every bit as gruesome as Deathgasm with, I don't think, an ounce of humor in it. This is a grim flick with an awesome throwback 80s style. The music and the way they filmed this, hell, even the time period, all oozes that 80s sensibility, and I choose the word oozes specifically. There's a lot of oozing in this movie. Fans of John Carpenter's The Thing, you've got to see this movie. It is the coolest, closest thing to that flick, maybe ever released, but certainly closest released in the past decade.
This isn't the end.
For a horror movie that is almost purely psychological, I highly recommend A Dark Song. Now, this is a very slow-paced horror flick as well, and it's got an incredibly simple setup. A woman hires a professional to help her perform a seance, and not just any old seance, like a real seance trying to communicate with the dead, and it's a big process. It's not like they just break out a Ouija board and a few candles. Like, they lock themselves in a house for an extended period of time. There's a bunch of rules that they have to follow in order for this thing to work, and what you get is an incredible psychological horror that slowly unfolds, but it is brilliantly done. I mean, there are only 2 characters in this movie. They're in one house the entire time, yet this doesn't feel like a tiny little stage production or anything, and unlike a lot of movies that might fit in a similar wheelhouse to A Dark Song, this movie actually delivers. While it is chilling, it's far from the most frightening thing on this list, but it's definitely one of those movies that's going to leave you thinking for days, if not weeks.
Mommy.
It's not your son.
I know.
Now, last year, one of the biggest horror movies, or at least the one that got the most buzz last year, was The Substance. Now, I really like that movie. I feel like it got plenty of praise, so it's not featured on this list. Yet, its writer-director, her first feature film, it was a Shudder original that is now available on Tubi, titled Revenge. Now, you may be aware, there's certain words I'm actually not allowed to say on YouTube. The R word, sexual assault, that is what this movie is about, or rather, that is what the revenge is for in Revenge. And as far as those movies go, you know, movies like I Spit on Your Grave, The Last House on the Left, Revenge is a eye-popping, knockdown, drag-out movie. I mean, in the vein of something like Kill Bill. It's colorful, it is wild, it is over the top in every sense of the word, and ultimately bloody as hell, but artfully done. I mean, this movie is just electric. It is pure rock and roll filmmaking and super satisfying. I mean, I love a good revenge movie. I watch a lot of them. And for this one to be titled Revenge, it delivers on the name, trust me. My number 11 pick on this list is the reason I make lists like this. It's a little-known horror movie that I thought was excellent and went criminally overlooked. It's titled The Devil's Candy. Now, I will say right up front, I do not feel like this movie is quite finished. When you compare this to, bigger budget releases, it feels like it's missing a couple of steps, maybe even just something as simple as a subplot, but if you go into this expecting kind of a tight 80-minute movie, my God, does it deliver. Ethan Embry, I love him as an actor. He plays an artist in this movie who begins painting these really bizarre, macabre paintings. They're actually pretty stunning visually, but it's coming from a place he doesn't quite understand. Weird things start happening with his daughter. Pruitt Taylor Vince has a great role in this movie. His character kind of helps bring the whole thing together. This one does have a little bit of a formula feel to it, the way, a lot of big budget horror movies, though. At the same time, it completely went off the radar. Nobody really talked about this movie, and I feel like even today, this thing's well worth revisiting.
Just the gas?
Now, in addition to Deathgasm, I mentioned I had a couple of horror comedies on this list. Only a couple more. My next one kind of rides the line. In fact, it's basically 2 movies in one that's all I'm gonna say regarding the major twist in One Cut of the Dead. Now, this is a Japanese zombie film that actually made a big splash here in the United States, but was a massive hit over in Japan, like took audiences by surprise, was just kind of a rogue cult hit when it released. If you can be patient and watch this movie all the way to the very, very end, the last minute of the movie, you will 100% understand why this movie was such a big deal over there and has kind of transcended Japan and come over here. Again, I cannot tell you what this movie is about. You have to be in the mood to watch a unique zombie movie with an interesting take that does something completely different, that has a bit of fun with it. I don't know how else to explain this movie without ruining it, so I think we're going to have to move on, but I will say, fans of zombie movies, even if you fell out of love with them 10 years ago, if you ever had any affection for the genre, One Cut of the Dead is an absolute gem you cannot miss. If that doesn't sound like you, I'm not going to push any harder for you to watch this movie, but my goodness, did this thing surprise me. Now, I will say you will have to read subtitles for One Cut of the Dead. It's Japanese. It's a zombie movie, though. I mean, there's not a ton of dialogue in it. But my next pick is from India, so you're gonna have to read subtitles for this one as well. But not only was it one of the more popular horror movies in India, but it's also based on like old Indian folklore, which made Tumbbad so unique compared to American horror movies. In fact, when I was a kid, I was a big fan of Jim Henson's The Storyteller. John Hurt hosted the show, narrated it, and it just had an incredible style to it. Kind of dark and moody, but told these incredible fantasy stories. This movie reminded me of that show so much, yet it has got much more mature themes in it. I mean, Tumbbad currently has an 8.2 rating on IMDb. I don't tend to point these out. I don't even put a whole lot of stock in those ratings, which is why I never point them out. But 8.2 is damn near unheard of, especially in the horror genre. So if you don't mind reading subtitles, and this one's not going to terrify you, but it is just a stunning horror movie in every sense of the word. Another visually stunning horror movie that actually stars Patrick Schwarzenegger, the son of Arnold Schwarzenegger, is Daniel Isn't Real. In this movie, Schwarzenegger plays an imaginary friend. The main character in this movie has had this imaginary friend, Daniel, since he was a kid. He's been gone for a long time, but now that he's in college, Daniel has showed back up. As the title might suggest, Daniel Isn't Real is something this young man has to keep telling himself. The more he seems to tell himself that, though, the more real Daniel appears to be. Now, this is a twisted movie. In fact, it gets darker and more twisted the further along you go. It's got kind of a trippy, almost psychedelic element to it at times. There's sort of a demonic theme that flows throughout it. You wouldn't really nail this down as a possession movie. In fact, it's kind of hard to nail this one down. It's so unique unto itself. If you clicked on this video trying to find something that is unique that you've never seen before, Daniel Isn't Real definitely is going to scratch that itch. You can currently catch it on Prime Video, Tubi, even Starz has Daniel Isn't Real right now.
What's that thing behind me?
Your shadow.
If you love the idea of getting endless movie recommendations right here on YouTube, I put out a video like this based on different genres and different streaming services once or twice a week, every single week, so click that subscribe button. I'll make sure you never run out of good movies to watch. Released the same year as Daniel Isn't Real, my next pick also has a psychedelic horror element, yet they stepped on the gas with the psychedelic stuff in Bliss, which is technically a vampire movie, but I'm telling you right up front, this is unlike any vampire movie you've ever seen before. This too, pretty artsy. It's a little indie flick. Some of the lower budget elements are going to be lost on certain audiences, but if you like little indie horror flicks, my goodness, this one is wild stuff. It's also pretty sexually graphic, more so than I think anything else I've talked about on this list, appropriately so for a vampire movie. It's also one of the bloodiest movies on this list. And similar to The Devil's Candy, the main character in Bliss is also an artist who begins painting really bizarre paintings. In fact, Bliss and Daniel Isn't Real would make a wild, trippy double feature to watch during the Halloween season this year.
It's gonna be my masterpiece.
Now, my number 6 pick is one of the darkest movies on this list. Not necessarily the most disturbing, but certainly like the most dark and macabre. And it also comes from a first-time director who's heavily inspired by David Fincher in The Empty Man. This movie opens up with a prologue that's relatively disconnected from the rest of the story. At least the characters in the prologue are completely disconnected from the main characters in the movie. And this movie revolves around kind of an investigation, like a murder mystery style movie, except obviously it's not just ordinary murders happening here. There's something much more bizarre going on. And as the main character edges closer and closer to what's actually happening, the movie really does become darker and darker. Ultimately, The Empty Man also goes to like this trippy, almost psychedelic place. The filmmaking never gets as trippy or psychedelic as the other two movies I just mentioned. Like, this legitimately looks like a David Fincher film. But where you end up with The Empty Man is almost on the same level of a Christopher Nolan movie in terms of how mind-blowing the conclusion is on this flick. And it's a long one. It's well over 2 hours, and that David Fincher flavor that they cooked into this movie makes it feel so much more elevated than almost anything else on this list, and I love everything on this list. We've still got my 5 most recent recommendations on this list. One is coming to Netflix very soon. One of the others, one of my favorite movies released in recent memory. Before that, I do want to tell you about how today's sponsor, Magic Spoon, has been my late night treat of choice for years now. Because it's a delicious high-protein treat that tastes just like the cereals you remember from when you were a kid. Each bowl of Magic Spoon comes with only 4 to 5 net grams of carbs, but 13 to 14 grams of protein per serving, with 0 grams of sugar and no artificial flavors. Magic Spoon is also gluten-free, grain-free, and soy-free, making it easy to incorporate into your diet. Magic Spoon comes in classic flavors like cocoa and peanut butter, but they also have creative flavors like maple waffle and birthday cake. If you don't consume dairy, you don't want a big bowl of milk with your Magic Spoon, then I recommend getting these treats. They're also familiar and very delicious, but my favorite thing they have is their newest product, the granola. It's loaded with Magic Spoon and granola. I put mine on top of whole milk yogurt with just a little bit of honey. It's absolutely amazing. Magic Spoon has just been a delicious way for me to pack in those extra grams of protein at the end of the long day while also satisfying that sweet tooth. For a limited time, my viewers can save $5 off your first order when you use my link in the video description, or just visit magicspoon.com/flick. It's a wonderful product I've been recommending on this channel for years now, but speaking of things I recommend, let's get to the top movies on this list. The last foreign language movie on this list, believe it or not, comes from Russia. It's titled Sputnik. And yes, this is an alien movie. In fact, Sputnik is the closest thing to the original Alien I've maybe ever seen. Now, it's not really trying to copy Alien or anything like that. The story structure is very different, but in terms of how creepy it is and how eerie some of the discoveries they make about the alien along the way are, it's just totally reminiscent of Ridley Scott's Alien. Now, story-wise, it's got its own structure. It's a bit slow, yet this movie's over and done with, really, before you're going to be over and done with it. Meaning, be patient, but if you're a fan of movies like this, those kind of slow burn, really well-done alien movies, Sputnik is one of the best scary alien movies I've maybe seen since any of the Alien movies. Now, there's one more found footage movie on this list. It's a hilarious one, but up until recently, it was a Shudder original, meaning Shudder was the only streaming service you could watch Deadstream on. However, Netflix just added this movie literally the day I'm releasing this video, and appropriately, it's about a YouTuber. A YouTuber that's gonna spend the night in a haunted house, something YouTubers have done before, and I'll warn you now, the YouTuber in this movie is a total tool. I mean, they just wrote him that way, and that is what makes this movie so funny. You kind of want this guy to go into this haunted house and to get the crap scared out of him. So he's a little irritating, but not so much so you're going to want to turn the movie off, just enough that you really want to see him poop his pants, and Deadstream goes to like Evil Dead territory. Now don't get me wrong, I'm not comparing this movie to the Evil Dead in terms of quality or how memorable it is, but it ultimately decides to go way over the top, loads of practical effects. I do not care that they don't look good in this movie. That's not the point of this movie. It is just a wild, fun house ride that's pretty funny, but is also just loaded with blood and jump scares and loads of Halloween goodness. At the end of the day, it's still another found footage movie. Next up, I've got a completely unique and extremely interesting movie. Forget what genre it is. It's a horror movie, obviously, but outside of genre, this thing is bizarrely unique and interesting. It's titled Oddity. Now, it's got a bit of an old-fashioned tone to it, which I didn't really mind at all. The main thing here, though, is the story. My goodness, the way this thing was written completely took me by surprise. It's loaded with stuff I've never seen in a horror movie before, and a main character who's like a blind, clairvoyant woman who has this strange doll that she kind of like can see the future with. Strange stuff, yet it all worked together. It's got this bizarre mix of almost like Edgar Allan Poe, Telltale Heart kind of stuff mixed with Tim Burton vibes. Like it's completely interesting. It is scary, but it's not going to terrify you for days after you watch it either, making it a pretty well-rounded horror flick that could be just a great one to flick on the next time you're looking for something good to watch. Only problem is it's only available on AMC and Shudder. I will say, if you're watching this video early and you're wanting endless horror movies for the Halloween season, Shudder is a great investment. It's only a few bucks a month. I'm not getting paid to say that. I'm not even going to give you links to sign up for it. My honest recommendation, though, would be to just try AMC Plus. All the Shudder stuff is included. It doesn't cost a whole lot more, and you get a lot more than you get with Shudder. That's just a little bonus advice from someone who has way too many streaming services.
As I've always believed, there's nothing that can't be explained.
Now, before my top two picks, I do want to put a little spotlight on a movie that's on Hulu. It's titled Presence. It came out this year, but it's not quite strong enough a recommendation for it to squeak onto this list. Yet Presence is directed by Steven Soderbergh, who did, the Ocean's 11 movies and a whole bunch of great films. But he directed a haunting movie titled Presence. The entire thing is filmed from a first-person perspective, and that first person is a spirit. So you, as the viewer, become the inhabitant of this house. It's a very slow burn. It goes to an incredibly dark place. It's not very frightening, but for fellow filmmaking nerds, this is a great one to watch around Halloween time. And then a movie released last year that did get kind of an outsized amount of buzz, a well-deserved amount of buzz, I might add, is Late Night with the Devil. Now, this is a very small movie with a very small concept that is completely unique. There's nothing else like it, and my goodness, does it deliver way better than you would expect. This entire movie takes place during one late night show. It's a made-up show, but it's kind of like a Johnny Carson competitor, is how they frame it. And they actually do a good job setting up this world and this show, this host, his motivations, but the bulk of the movie is his last show. So there's some pacing issues as he's bringing on other guests and things, but ultimately when this movie gets where it's going, it delivers. There's a reason there was so much buzz about this. Far from the most terrifying thing on this list, but for something with some real wow factor and an awesome throwback vibe, it didn't get a whole lot better than Late Night with the Devil. And then, believe it or not, my number one pick on this list, not only was it my favorite flick released in 2024, it's not even technically a horror movie, yet it fits squarely on this list, so hang with me as we talk about Strange Darling. A movie that was widely overlooked despite some critical success. This thing came and went out of theaters. It's on Paramount Plus right now. Odds are most of you haven't even seen it or heard of it, unless you're a longtime viewer of this channel. I gotta say, Tarantino fans, you watch this Halloween season. If you don't have Paramount Plus, this thing's worth a rental. It is completely unique filmmaking. Whole thing was shot on 35mm. Actor Giovanni Ribisi is the cinematographer for this movie. It's the only time he's ever done it. He did a bang-up job. The movie looks incredible. This thing is loaded with twists and turns. I don't care how many movies you've seen. You're talking to someone that's seen thousands. I could not foresee the twists and turns in Strange Darling. This movie must be what it was like for audiences to have seen Psycho for the first time. I'm not saying the plot is anything really like Psycho, but it's so edgy, unique, and kind of hits you over the head with some of the twist and some of the macabre elements in Strange Darling that this has got to be what audiences felt like when they first saw some of those Alfred Hitchcock classics. A feeling I have not had maybe my entire life. A feeling I've probably never had in a movie theater before until I saw this one. That's a bold statement coming, especially from somebody like me that watches as much content as I watch. I cannot rave about this movie enough. I will say it deals with some very adult themes. I'm going to leave it at that. Do not watch this one with the kids in the house. You might want them in another county when you watch this one. But here's a recap of the list. I hope you found something good and scary to watch on this list. Don't forget to check out the Magic Spoon link in the video description. But I'll keep making these videos as long as y'all keep watching them. Thanks for watching this special horror list, and you will see me on the next one.